Next up, we have a presentation on Denmark's radio's work with automatic production of metadata for news content, which include experiments with GPT-4 and fine-tuning of GPT-3.5. Please welcome Head of AI at Danmarks Radio, Lasse Funder Andersen.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. My name is Lasse and I work with AI in the news department of DR, and I'm talking today about the challenges of making language models behave and actually do things a little bit more boring but more reliable. When you look at language models today, they are like kind of can-do-it-all types of persons. You have some very versatile and creative and sometimes surprising models, which is sometimes very nice, but also this can be a downside also, that it's unpredictable and unreliable. And sometimes what you really need is kind of this guy. A guy that has really no concept of the world and doesn't know how to do very much except for one specific thing, and that is counting cards. We don't need someone who can count cards, but we actually need an expert in reading articles and extracting metadata. This is an example of an article, and the metadata we have is that it's domestic, inland. The tag up there means that it's from Denmark, and that really says us nothing at all. So what we want is kind of a machine that takes DR articles and spits out a lot of nice metadata. And we want to use that to analyze user behavior in a more fine-grained way. We want to monitor diversity. We want to have a better source archive, and we want an archive of historic quotes. That's the kind of the goals. And we could do that with a lot of off-the-shelf solutions, but one of the hardest ones is this one, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. If you have an article, what we want to do is we want to extract the actual quote, but also information about that quote. Who said it? What's his or her job? And who does he or she work for? And is it a he or a she? And just as the Rain Man kind of character had to learn the rules of blackjack, we need to train a model that can do that. And we use ChatGPT and exploit the fact that the middle letter in GPT is a P, that stands for pre-trained. And that means that the GPT has been trained on a very boring, mundane task that's not really useful for anything, and that is just to predict the next word in a sentence. What OpenAI did initially was fine-tune the ChatGPT for chat, which means that they gave it a lot of examples of what could a user think of asking the chatbot, and then they actually wrote an example of this would be nice if the chatbot gave back that answer. So fine-tuning just means give it a lot of example prompts and a lot of examples of what is the desired behavior. And we don't teach our model to count cards, but to look at an article and see what is going on. So this is an example of some training data that we made using GPT-4, and then we had human annotators to go through it and see and correct any mistakes, and there were quite a lot, but correct the mistakes. So we had a very, very high quality data set of articles annotated with quotes and who said it and information about the sources. So this is Adrienne Watson. She's a talskvinde, which means spokeswoman, and she's working for the National Security Council. So that's the information embedded in there. And sometimes you have to go a bit far from the quote, up a few lines to find the role. And sometimes it's really a bunch of spaghetti. So we are asking quite a lot of a language model to go make the connection between this quote and the information that might be several paragraphs away. So the way we fine-tune is that first we give it a system prompt. We need to explain the task. Then we give it the actual article, so just the raw text of an article. Then we add a function definition, because people who have tried ChatGPT have noticed how, it's very good at being nice and saying, all right, thank you for this interesting task. Here is an example for you. And that's really bad for computers. They don't understand and don't appreciate niceties. They just want some basic JSON-like computer code language. So we need to add some kind of definition that says, I want the answer in this specific computer-friendly format. And finally, we add the annotated data. So this is what we want you to give me if the question was actually this specific article. And once we did that, we did that a couple of hundred times, and then we got back some results, and they were kind of like not really happy about it. But then we figured out that we might be able to help the model a little bit, because all the quotes, they follow some pattern. We have like a hyphen, we have a space, we have a quote, and then we have a comma and a space, and then some kind of verb that comes from a quite limited list of possible cues, that this is a quote, or sometimes it's just, I'm fighting it with this one, or sometimes it's just a period. And if we use this very old school regular expression task or method of extracting quotes, and then just add these are the quotes that we found using this technique, like this. So just add the quotes, this is the text, and then this is me at the computer after we we did the first test run, because the results are really good. It extracts 99% of all quotes correctly. And it doesn't, make up quotes, it just missed a few. And that's quite a crucial thing. And when we look at the metadata around the quotes that it extracted, it's really, really good at names. And these other numbers are a little bit lower, but they look lower than they actually are. This is an example of the machine getting the source wrong. But it's quite understandable. If you know Danish, you will see that this guy is talking about what he remembers some other guy, this guy, said a few years ago. So the computer said, all right, the quote is from this guy, and the human annotators have annotated the other guy. But you could have long discussions between humans about what is actually the right answer here. And when we look at examples of the errors, and I put it in quotes like this, if your human annotator had annotated supersmager, this one is what the AI system said. Someone is kayak-roer, he's rowing a kayak. He's also a world champion, and it's in the text, so it's quite understandable why that was taken out. Former kontorchef or kontorchef, professor or professor in some specific field, it's all within the ballpark and quite acceptable answers. And then this one came and said, oh shit, it doesn't work, until I looked at the article about this Jens Østergaard kind of guy who is an entrepreneur, but he's actually in the article because he's the father of someone who became famous because of a TV program we made. So quite impressed about the way that it's able to infer just from the text the different roles and employers and stuff that we want to get from the articles. So this is we're quite pleased with this kind of Rain Man kind of model that we have working for us in DR now. And just briefly where we are at, we just processed all of March production. That's something like 1,200 articles to get the first test batch in the hands of guys in DR who will be analyzing this and seeing whether the quality is good enough and whether the format is good. And the next steps will be that we need to do a little bit more testing, and then we want to do like the big batch processing of several years, or maybe if we can afford it, the entire archive at DR. And then we want to set up some kind of automatic system that takes all new articles and tags them with this metadata automatically. And finally, we need to have some way of visualizing it to the users maybe, or to the people in the newsroom. We might need a big dashboard or something, and we haven't decided on that yet. So this is just our take on one use case for using a language model and trying to tame it in a way that makes it more useful. I think that there's a great potential for using the power and the, the abilities of language models to some very specific use cases. And it's like we are only driving in maybe first or second gear if we just use the vanilla versions of the LLMs. If we do this fine-tuning for different tasks, I think we can get some really amazing results and use cases out of it. Yeah, so that's my 5 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lasse. That was interesting. I was wondering, you were just touching upon it in the end, but what is kind of the potential of DR if you gain more knowledge of the whole archive? It becomes accessible to you.
Specifically about the quotes, having like an archive, a library of who said what, when, about what, I think is a very powerful research tool. We have this guy at Christiansborg, a political department that's called Morten, and he's the guy who can remember, the Social Democrats who just came with some suggestion, they said something else 3 years ago about, tariffs on flying or something like that. And we can actually have a tool that can do some of that stuff. What in election cycle, what have the Conservatives said for the last 10 years about CO2 tariffs or something like that? And we can get some guidance on where to find interesting stuff.
Yeah, so Morten is kind of in this system for everyone to use, basically.
The Morten GPT, yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering about this categorization tool relating to gender. Is it only binary categorization of gender? Or
no, well, there are 3.
Okay.
And it's not just catching the non-binary genders. It's also that there's a lot of sources that we actually don't get the gender from. If it's just the vagthavende from Københavns Politi says something, then you don't even know the name or the gender of the person. But we have a third category. We don't have all the letters, but we have a non-gender.
Yeah. And I was wondering, maybe it's not that relevant for the quotes categorization, but for the other parts of the metadata project, have you experienced that some models have been more biased than others? I think you've tested several.
Yeah, we have most experience using the GPT-3 and a 3.5 model. And what we're struggling with is not biased so much as it's more having it stay within the lines of the categories that we defined, and it goes well a lot of it goes well, and then sometimes it actually makes up like an 18th category that we didn't ask it to do. So that's the main challenge about that, and we haven't processed that much data yet, so we still have some findings to do regarding bias.
All right, and do you have any questions for Lasse? Yes, we have one from Sophie down here. So glad to hear it, Sophie. Then I get to throw you this. Just a second. Let's not hit. Oh. Okay, not my greatest.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sophie from Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies. Thank you very much. I think this is something that is really important to have all that data because that's obviously important. Will it be something that will only be for the use of internally in DR, for journalists, for that kind of thing, or will you open it up to the public? Is that sort of on the plan of the next steps, or even open it up to other media companies to use?
the goal is to have an internal tool, and whether some of this data will be publicly available, that's something we have to decide. That hasn't been decided yet. So the goal first is to have an internal tool and some metadata that we can use.
And do you have any idea of when you will have it ready, so to say? Where are you in the process of 0 to 100%?
Yeah, we still have some testing to do before we push like the big button that says, all right, let's process several years of production. We hope to do it before the summer, but we have to see how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any others? No? I think that was it. Thank you so much, Lasse von Andersen.